Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our board meeting. If we could have a roll call, Mr. Weber.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
Mr. Fellis?
Present.
Mr. Smith?
Present.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
And Mr. Williams?
Here. And at this time, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance and Dr. Hall.
Thank you.
Treasurer Mr. Weber, Superintendent Mr. Tucker, Board President Mr. Williams, and distinguished board members. Tonight we have Lily Morris Mathis, who will also lead us in a pledge. She is also a student at Lorain High School Annex and will be speaking tonight on lessons I've learned in my freshman year. Lily is the daughter of Joseph Morris and Alicia Mathis. Ms. Ray Bastock, principal at Lorain High School Annex, is here tonight to support her student. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. My lessons learned as a freshman. What can I say? I have learned a lot of lessons this past year. From taking notes, to attendance, to drama with everything in between. One of the lessons that will definitely stick with me is grades. Grades were stressed to us in Advent about how they were going to be in our transcripts. That didn't hit me until this quarter, and I realized if I didn't get my act together, I wouldn't pass some of my classes. This has another lesson in it. I had to hold myself accountable for slacking and not doing my work. I had to learn to be responsible. Responsible for the decisions that I had made. Responsibility and grades are especially important lessons that I've learned. I cannot blame others for my failure or my grades. You have to put in effort to be successful, and I will definitely keep these lessons close. From homework to class projects to tardiness, with everything in between. I would like to send this as a welcome message to the freshmen coming in next year to keep in mind what you're doing in school and do your best, and don't blame others for your failure.
We would also like to thank Lily's parents for attending. Please stand and be recognized as well. I'm sorry, not here. Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you for all your help and assistance. And we have a certificate for you. And thank you. Okay. Tonight we also like to honor one of our principals here tonight. Ohio Alliance of Black School Educators is the Ohio affiliate of National Alliance of Black School Educators, NAPSE. On Saturday, April the 5th, 2014, our Ohio Alliance of Black School Educators held the first Principal Appreciation and Student Recognition Banquet at the Columbus Airport Marriott. The purpose of this Alliance of Black School Educators is to promote and facilitate quality education. And one of the primary functions is to work to increase academic achievement of all students. The organization honored principals that were selected by the local chapter as an effective leader within their learning communities. The organization selected Michael Scott, principal at General Donnie Wilson Middle School, and Olivia Ninemy was recognized as a student at GJW exemplified academic and social excellence. Furthermore, this school year, Michael Scott was also recognized at the Lorain County Alliance of Black School Educators, LCAPSE, as Principal of the Year, and the Lorain Club of National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Club as Educator of the Year as well. So I'd like to honor Mr. Scott and also Olivia Ninemy tonight as well. Please come forward. And Mr. Scott, I'd like to say a few words for Olivia.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. Thank you, Board, for taking the opportunity to recognize the work that we are doing collectively at General Johnny Wilson. While the awards were given to me, it's not possible without the strong staff that is at General Johnny Wilson that puts in tireless hours to provide an environment for our students so that they can pursue their academic and social dreams. And Olivia is an example of that. As a 7th grade student, Olivia is gifted and accelerated. She's currently taking 8th grade language arts and algebra 1 as a 7th grader. Not only is she excelling well academically, she's never gotten anything lower than an A. She also is involved in volleyball, basketball, currently track. She's been a part of our poetry slams, and she's just a pleasure to be a part around daily. Oftentimes as adults, we can get caught up in a daily grind, but Olivia doesn't allow me to do that because she'll put on that smile. She's one of our building leaders, and she's not always vocal with her leadership, but she leads every single day by her example. So I'm truly proud of this young lady, and she is a representation of the excellence that occurs daily at General Johnny Wilson Middle School. So Olivia, thank you for being you.
At this time, if we can get a picture with the board members as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
And I must say, we are really honored that others statewide, locally recognize the talent and the ability and the excellence that we have here at Lorain City Schools. And I was flashing back because I remember Livy when she and Lindsay were in the dance competition at Southview when they were like tiny. And it's just amazing watching kids grow up in our system and take advantage of the opportunities. And so congratulations to them and to the parents who are here. At this time, we would have and entertain our first hearing of the public. If there are any individuals who would like to address the board, we would honor that now. Thank you. At this time, can I have a motion to approve or amend the minutes from the regular meeting on Monday, April 7th, 2014?
Motion to approve. Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fells?
Yes.
And Mr. Williams?
Yes. Is there any old business for discussion, gentlemen? At this time, we'll move to the report and recommendations of the treasurer. Mr. Weber?
I have no report this evening.
Thank you, sir. And I think at this time, I know there are some guests that will be introduced, so we'll turn this over to Mr. Tucker.
In the city of Lorain, we have a number of businesses and organizations that support the schools every year. And tonight, I'd like to recognize one of those companies. Tonight, we have Jeanette Romero from CenturyLink here to present some scholarships and some awards to some people for their work.
Thank you, Superintendent. Hi, I am Jeanette Romero. I am with CenturyLink, and many months ago, there were teachers who were thinking about ways in which they could use innovative technology to enhance the learning experience in their classrooms. And so they applied for a grant with the CenturyLink Technology Teachers and Technology Grant Program. And so I'm here today to share some really great news with a few teachers. I can see the excitement already in the crowd.
They didn't know we were doing this. We've been keeping this a secret.
Yeah, as soon as I say CenturyLink, you know, I'm giving it away. So, there are 3 lucky teachers, and that's Joan Yarsa, Mindy Young, and LaValle Ritchie. Congratulations, but I'm not done. Okay, so there's even better news. Joan Yarsa is with Lorain High School, and she wanted to get some e-readers and e-books for the school library. And so she's being awarded $4,040. Mindy Young is with Palm Elementary, and she wanted to buy Apple iPads, covers, and specific apps for those. And she's being awarded $4,614.66. And LaValle Ritchie with Stephen DeHanos Elementary wanted to buy IXL math programs, hardware, and supplies to enhance the math learning experience. And she is being awarded $1,847.64 for a total amount to be awarded of $10,502.30. And Superintendent, can we have them come up here and show this?
Congratulations.
Well, in the past, they just kind of delivered the awards, and she had emailed me, and I'll give credit to Elena Gonzalez, my administrative assistant. She goes, it'd be neat if we could sneak them into the board meeting, not tell them, and award them then, and they said it was a great idea. And I thought it was really nice.
Well, congratulations to you. We are so excited for Lorain City Schools. We are so glad that you applied for the grants because it's a competitive process. This gets culled a number of times. It's based on the impact to academic achievement, scope of impact, the budget narrative, among a lot of innovation and other criteria. So congratulations to you. And with that, I do have the real thing here. It keeps getting better, right? Okay, Joan Yarsa. There's yours.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You turn those over to the treasurer before.
Issuing instructions.
For audit purpose only.
Yeah. Mindy Young. There's yours. And LaValle Ritchie. You're welcome. Congratulations to you. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along to our next presentation. Tonight we have Dr. John Richard from Ohio Department of Education. He's a familiar face for those of you that have been attending commission meetings. He's been working with us, and he'll be moving on to another position, but still overseeing this. So tonight he's going to do a presentation on what Ohio Department of Education is going to come into the district like they did last year and take a look at the progress we've made and see where we're at. So I'd like to turn it over.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. President Williams, members of the board, thanks for giving me a few minutes this evening. We've done quite a bit of work around the work of the distress commissions in the state just over the past several months. And tonight I wanted to give you a bit of an update on what's going to be happening throughout your district next week as a result of this. When I came into the department a little over a year ago, one of the things that was kind of given to me right off the bat was the work around the Distress Commission, and we knew that Lorain was going to be one of the districts coming into that. And as a result of it, over the past 15 months or so, we've really taken a look at how the law reads in terms of when a district is triggered into a Distress Commission in place, what it takes for that Distress Commission to exit. But then there's a whole lot in between, other than some of the authorities given to the commission and so forth. But in terms of process and just how it kind of works out day to day, there's not much prescription in the law. So what we did was try to really kind of identify some gaps, some areas we could improve as a department to provide better support. And frankly, when we came into Lorain a little over a year ago, we were really just beginning that work. So tonight is a culmination of, like I said, a little over a year's worth of work around that and some things we're doing to provide better support both to the commission but more importantly to the young people here in Lorain. And we want to inform the board fully of that, as well as the administrative team here in the district, because the idea is that we'll provide hopefully some direction for decision making and so forth. So over the last year, we've taken a good look at, on the front end and on an annual basis, what should we be doing for the district. And one of those things we did here in Lorain, but have kind of really ramped it up quite a bit, is a review of just what is the current status. What do things look like? Tom, if you want to go ahead and jump forward for me. One of the first things we did is we built an office around this work. I am not Clary, but Clary is now the point person for any distress commission work around the state of Ohio. Go ahead. So what I want to do tonight is talk about what this thing called the district review looks like, a little bit about the process, and then the report that will be coming to all of you a couple months from now. So first of all, is why do we have this team of people coming into the district next week? Two reasons, and you're in the top row there, and that is because you currently have a distress commission in place here. One of the things we've committed to is that every spring, for any district that has a distress commission in place, we'll come in and do a week-long review. We'll be here on site Monday through Friday next week, and then we'll provide some follow-up, as I mentioned, to the board a couple months from now on that. Really, a lot of our work is being built around the idea of preventing that. So districts who are in what's called high support in our state, primarily looking at the bottom 5% of performing districts throughout the state, starting next year are also going to have district review teams come in and hopefully prevent them from having a distress commission come into place. Just so you understand, the work of the team is not just limited to distress commissions as well. And then this all fits in with our accountability in what's called the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, the federal waivers that are in effect. It's one of the supports that we offer to districts throughout the state through those waivers, but it also happens to be state law in our case. The district review process really already has begun for Lorain. Our team of 6 different people, plus Clary, who's the director of the office, has already been reviewing a lot of data, both from the state that's been provided there, and Superintendent Tucker and his team. I'm sure Elena's probably been part of that. Has provided quite a bit of information. Yeah, probably a lot of people in this room as well. So our team actually spent 2 days last week doing a documents review, so at least on paper they could get a little bit of an idea of what Lorain looks like. What we are looking for is really observable behaviors and practices throughout the district. You'll hear this probably a few times tonight, but we're really taking kind of a snapshot in a week's time, but it's looking at 3 areas. 1, what do we see? 2, what do we hear? And 3, what is actually data that we can review on paper? So all of this comes out of work around research on effective schools and school districts. We also, I'll give a little plug right now for 2 groups. One is our school improvement diagnostic review teams that have been in place in Ohio for a number of years. They did a lot of the early work on this, as well as we went to the Department of Massachusetts. They are pretty closely aligned to the work we do in Ohio, and frankly, we took a lot of their work, tweaked it a bit, and made it our own with their permission. The process is aligned with the focus areas in the department. So every year it's going to get tweaked a little bit, so it's aligned with the standards that are out there. Right now we know we have new evaluation systems for our principals, our teachers, and so forth. So all of this will be very much aligned with what's happening at the department, what the expectations are of school districts throughout the state as well. When we're here next week, and what we've already begun looking at the documents are 6 really broad areas. They're in front of you there, and I think you all have a PowerPoint, so I'm not going to go through each one of them. But for example, we will have a team member that's the lead on leadership and governance. That person will be interviewing board members, interviewing the superintendent, part of the leadership team, and probably some officials locally as well, to get an idea of what is this leadership and governance thing look like here in Lorain. We'll do the same in each of the other 5 broad areas as well. It's also very much aligned with our work called the OIP, the Ohio Improvement Process. Lorain's very familiar with that. It's a 5-step process. Really, it's kind of a 4-step process with some preliminary stuff on the front end. That's really just a good improvement, ongoing cycle of plan, kind of do, study, act, and adjust. And the thing that I kind of want to draw your attention to as well is who are the team members that are coming into your district next week. We took care in making sure our very first criteria is that anybody on this team that's coming in to review what's happening in Lorain had to have extensive experience in a school district. So we have nobody from the department that doesn't have school and district background with them. Secondly, and you can flash forward once, the other thing we did is we tried to have a pretty much of an array of experience, some inner city, some suburban, some kind of in between. So we've got a good mix of people with a variety of backgrounds who are going to be coming into your district next week as well. In terms of what you need to do to prepare, the board really doesn't have to do anything other than listen and be prepared for a report a couple months from now. All the work really has been done by Tom and everybody he's assigned that to. I do have to give him a plug right now. He has been extremely collaborative with us. He's been that way with the commission. I can say as a former superintendent, it's not easy, kind of in a sense, answering to 2 masters at the same time. It's not an easy task. He's done that very well, and he's always provided anything that the commission's ever needed. In this case, ODE is asking for this so we can help inform the commission and your board, and we have a ton of information from Lorain right now as a result of that. Okay, some of the expectations for the district. Go ahead and flip forward. First of all, we will be in and out of every building in the district. I know we've already walked through this with your superintendent, but we'll need open access. Of course, that's within the parameters of all the safety procedures and everything else. That's an expectation from our end. Secondly, that the documents that we've asked for, and the other thing that will happen is our team has been reviewing those documents. When they're on site, they will probably ask for some more as well. And we're trying to do our best to email that ahead of time as they're getting prepped for their visit next week. And then finally, the real thing is we're on site here for 5 days is meeting space in an ongoing manner. The documentation as we're kind of reviewing things throughout the district, and then also access to internet and copiers. And again, that's all been provided and set up for us at this point. The couple points I really want to mention here. One is, what are the expectations of classroom visits? Because that always makes teachers nervous. It usually makes anybody nervous when we're kind of coming into your space. So our very first thing we'll say is please, please, please conduct business as usual. The reviewers that go in to do classroom observation will be in for roughly 20 minutes, give or take, depending on what's going on. We've asked them whether that teacher's providing a study hall that day, teaching a new lesson, reviewing, whatever they're happening to do that day. We do want them seeing what is exactly happening. We want to know kind of what the status of the district instructional practices and curriculum happen to be. We're asking you not to change anything. We don't need a show. We don't need a big, we'd really rather come into this rather low key. And then finally, we're going to be doing a number of individual and group interviews. The expectation there is as much open and honest dialogue as possible from people. My guess is at the end of this whole process, you're not going to hear a whole lot of what you probably don't already know, or at least there are some perceptions of it out there. It's a way for us to come in an objective manner and probably either kind of verify some things that you're thinking about, maybe have you take a new look at some things. But it's something that typically districts don't have time to really step back and do this themselves without incurring a lot of cost to have it done. So during the classroom observations, our people will be sitting hopefully as low-key as possible in the classroom, just observing and writing. The only things we'll ask for is if there happens to be a lesson plan available, we'd like to see that. If there's any data notebooks that the teachers happen to have on hand, we may look through those. A couple things that really need to be clarified. I know it's in writing as well, but by law, we cannot take student names, teacher names back with us. So there will be no names associated with anything, paperwork that we have, or in terms of anything that we're allowed to take back to the department. So if we do see names, it's not that we can't see them, but we certainly can't keep anything that has a name on it. And as we're reviewing whether it's teacher personnel files or if it's student work because we're in a classroom, we cannot take anything with us that has an identifying information on it. Kind of what we're doing, and I mentioned this before, is really we want to read about it, we want to see things in actions, and we want to hear about it through interviews. It's kind of our way of triangulating, clarifying the information in front of us. Just because one person tells us something, not that we don't believe that person, but we're also going to look for it in other documents, verify it with other people we're interviewing, or we're going to be looking to observe it. Then what happens is we discuss how often we're seeing this, hearing it, looking at it. We'll discuss what the quality happens to be on it, and ultimately we're going to discuss, is there an impact on student performance here? Positive, negative, somewhere in between. And then to kind of talk through a little bit about what happens after the on-site review, I'll back up for a minute and talk about the process. Go ahead and hit that. The whole process is, number one, the documents review that I talked about, and our team has taken the better part of 2 days to have already done that prior to coming out here next week. So we, at this point, have a bit of a picture on paper of what Lorain looks like. Secondly, we'll organize and discuss all of that data that we've already got, and then during our really 4 days on site next week, and then the 5th day I'll talk to you about in a few minutes. But during those 4 days, we'll collect further data based on what we see and observe, based on the interviews we conduct here. And then at the end of the process, what we'll do is I'll bring our team back together next Thursday, late afternoon, and we'll talk about emerging themes. It's not going to be a final report, but we feel like it's really important to at least inform your superintendent and his leadership team. Here's kind of what we're seeing early on after being on site 4 days. So we'll discuss that on day 5, which will be next Friday. Then what happens is the team takes all that information back with them. We give them 3 weeks to analyze everything they've collected, everything they've heard, everything they've observed, and then they go through a process of identifying the different findings in one of those 6 areas that they were in charge of, and they will come up with strengths that are identified here in the districts and challenges or areas for growth. So there'll be one large section, strengths, and then challenges. And then from the strengths and the areas for growth, then there'll be a series of recommendations as the team comes back together several weeks from now to put all of their findings together and then make recommendations that we facilitate them through a team process. And then finally, and this will be roughly about a month and a half to 2 months down the line, we will come back and we will share that with Tom and his team. We'll share it with you if you'd like to invite us back to provide the findings of that report. And then we will also inform the Distress Commission of those findings, with the idea being that there's a piece in the legislation around the distress commissions that they have to, on an annual basis, update the recovery plan. That's kind of the plan that drives all the work that they ask of the superintendent and his team here. He gets used to providing a whole lot of reports for that commission. One of the other kind of areas that I talked about at the department, we felt like there's some room for growth, is a better structure to have the board and the commission communicate on an ongoing basis. This is one of the ways we felt like we could do a better job of that, is by providing it to both bodies. You both are going to have the same report. If you invite us in, we can do some Q&A when we come up with those recommendations. But then in an ongoing manner, hopefully we have a very similar kind of plan in place from both the local board and from the commission, so we don't have things that are kind of this far apart, but everybody's seeing the same kind of issues and hopefully working towards the same goals and objectives rather than kind of two separate entities. And a big part of that is, I think all of our hope is that at some point in not the too distant future, this thing called the Distress Commission will be able to exit this district, and ultimately, kind of the full control goes back to the local board. That is really the goal, and I can tell you out of Columbus, that's what people would like to see. We're all kind of dealing with the legislation that we have, but we would much rather have it at some point handed back to the local board. So this review process is part of hopefully having both bodies work somewhat together in identifying goals and the direction we need to head as a district. So again, those evidences, our findings, and the strengths, the challenges, and the recommendations are all going to be based from the different data that we collect. It's on evidence. Hopefully it's going to help inform the decision-making process here. I know the OIP framework's used a good bit here, so it will just help to further identify and clarify decision points in that process. It's also going to hopefully help you align your budget priorities moving forward. You'll obviously want to look at what that focus plan is going to look like in terms of implementation. And I'll pause just a minute there. One of the things we will be doing for the Distress Commission districts is we'll come back in November, December, and do a much shorter version of this that's focused only on what our recommendations were and how the board and the commission are both working to implement that plan to see if it's actually taking root. So that's really what how it supports the district work. And then finally, if you do have questions, I'm not Clary, but Clary actually is transitioning into really being the lead around all of this work around anybody who's got distress commission in play in the state. She is the director of that office. She's been on site for just under 2 months now, and she's actually out in Youngstown this week conducting the first one of these week-long site reviews. So she is out there right now doing that. In terms of the whole process of this thing, as I said, we started the review last week with 2 days of documents review. The team will be on site here next week for 5 days. We'll do the Emerging Themes Conference with Tom, so he has at least a little bit of an understanding of some of the really big picture items. And then we'll come back, if you would like us to, probably in July or August. We certainly want to do that prior to the school year beginning, and really talk about what the full report looks like at that point. That'll be a public document. It's not intended to be a monitoring or anything like that. It's really intended to provide a picture of where the district is, and then hopefully provide some recommendations for both bodies in terms of the commission and the board. So with all that, I know I kind of threw a lot at you. I also gave Tom a document that was shared with him that just talks about some of the kind of the pieces, parts of this as we're on site. Full disclosure, look through that. It kind of talks through some of those are documents we give directly to the team members who are going to be out here as well. So, any questions I can answer at this point in terms of the review itself? Yes, sir.
Is there anything you would learn in the review that would allow the commission to dissolve?
It's pretty well spelled out in terms of state law right now. The only thing is that if it's really, there's a trajectory of improvement here, and that's probably going to be after all the report card data is released, and then probably what would happen is the report might work to kind of verify that or put an exclamation mark on it, because the state superintendent does have the authority to dissolve a commission if he has data to support that it's headed in the right direction, maybe before what's there in law, actually happens. So that would be the only thing that I could say to that, is it might support that idea.
I've just read a very interesting opinion paper by an educator that doesn't have a great deal of faith in what's going on when states come in and run school districts. And one of the things that he relates it to taking a sledgehammer to a screw. What are you looking? One of the complaints he has, and I agree, if it's true, are you looking for symptoms or causes?
We're, as much as possible, looking for causes. Our idea is to come in here and to say what is current status, and one of the reasons we're so really focused on evidence is so we can get at that, and that's why we really work to triangulate. We don't want to take one person's word or something that's somewhat surface, but to look back at trend data, and that's why we spend so much time interviewing a number of different stakeholders as well throughout the process.
Do you interview students too?
Possibly. We leave that up to the district, but the answer is yes.
It's on the list.
If it works out. Right.
We're also doing that survey also to get student input.
Yeah, and one of our goals, that's always the tough thing, is we want to be as least intrusive as possible. So, we know we're going to be asking board members, community members, parents, so forth. And we want to be really careful about the student part of that, because, of course, Tom would have to get permission for that to be done and so forth. Because some people might say, I don't want you talking to people from the state. So we have to be very careful, but if we can, we do want to talk to some students also.
But you have to do what anyone who comes in contact in Ohio with students, and that is a criminal background check?
All of these people have gone through a process for us, yes.
Okay.
And these are all retired school people also, so they've been through that process also. But yeah, they had to go through a process to be hired.
I have a question as it relates to the process that you're going to engage in next week and how that connects to the initial review process a year ago. I mean, it sounds like this is the bottom line baseline, but really we comparatively, with the last process, and how specifically different is that one? Because, I mean, if this is very different, then all of that was... Yes.
Yeah, one of the first documents this team reviewed is the current academic recovery plan, which was based on that first review as well. So that is, they are well aware there's a plan in place, so they will be asking questions about, has this been implemented, so forth, with the review. So it's not totally, separated from it. And then that's also the purpose why we're ramping this up, and we'll be back in November, December timeframe. So it's specific to the outcomes of this particular report as well, which is going to build on the previous report.
So then will we get information that shows the either disparity or where we are in relation to the last report? I mean, is this going to be like A, B, C, and D, and we're going to compare?
We don't have it set up like with a gap analysis or anything like that, but it will come out in terms of strengths, weaknesses, and we will address the previous plan in that report also. So it will be talked about in there, at least at the very least, kind of on the front end or throughout the document in the different areas as it relates to it.
Because I guess what's challenging is specifically we know there were some deficient areas based on the last report. We would highly value being able to assess in those specific areas, because they were very specific,
Right.
what our progress has been in those specific areas. I mean, otherwise, having that previous assessment if not compared specifically and directly to this assessment, would really, it'd be very valuable to us.
Sure.
So we're hoping that.
Yeah, and I think you'll see that.
Okay,
I mean, because
good.
they are very much aware of that. The other thing too, when any of you are interviewed, if there's something specific that you think is really critical, bring that up during your interview, because that's the person who will be interviewing you is kind of the lead for the team that week anyway. And we do have access, as I said, to just about every document that could be had.
You wanted them.
And I think the other part of my question related to that is, are there any members of this review team that were present just a year ago when we did the review?
No, we purposely did not want to do that. We had quite a bit of discussion about it, but one thing as we've really kind of ramped this up is it was more important to us to have people who their most recent experience was out in the field, not at the department, because they understand, frankly, what's kind of going on in your lives every day here, probably better than we do who've been removed from that for a while.
One of the areas, now I'm getting back to what Mr. Williams, there were about 4 or 5 observations, one of them in environment of low expectations. So I'm going to be looking in the next, whatever is going on next week, to some feedback to see if that has, what is that today? Has that changed?
Right.
Has the recovery plan? And it was low expectations of students, wrong people in wrong seats, and is it going to be based on a similar format?
Yeah, it will be based, other than we come up with the findings, which are going to be strengths and areas for improvement. Those are going to be in one of those 6 broad areas there. But as I said, the first document they reviewed was the academic recovery plan, which informed the work of the Distress Commission. So that will find its way into those areas.
One thing that I had my staff do is there were 6 areas that they did last year. We've taken the ODE report that we all read about month after month after month, and we addressed each item bullet point to see if we addressed them, and we'll be sharing that with the people that come in, that this is where we needed to improve, and here's exactly what we did, and you will get a copy of that from us also.
And I think the other thing I can say is, again, to reemphasize part of the intent behind this is kind of like step 1 in a sense, but really part of the idea is that we believe there needs to be some increased communication and focus of the board working with the commission, so we're not kind of hearing things, even if it's Tom, he's still one person who's got, his board meeting, and then next week he's got a commission meeting and so forth. I know what that's got to feel like, to everybody who's involved in that process. We'd like to see a bit more communication so everybody's kind of getting the same types of reports and he's not duplicating a lot of the work is the idea. We can't force that, obviously, because the commission operates in law, your body operates in law, but we would like to do as much as we can to support that kind of a process.
Now, will this report, will it be more subjective, or is it going to be clearly measurable?
It will be very measurable. As I said, if we don't see it, hear it, observe it through data, or we're able to triangulate it through what the superintendent's saying this, 3 of his board members said the same thing, and 4 people we interviewed on his administrative team said the same thing, we're probably getting a sense that that's a factual piece of information. If Mr. Williams says one thing and 3 other board members say the opposite, and Mr. Tucker says something different from either one of those 2, we're probably going to have some question marks, and it's not going to find its way into the report as a piece of data, other than we might say something like, there seems to be a disconnect on this issue, would be how we would present something like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I guess our expectation even last year was that there would be some clear, baseline numbers, because, for example, if we look at certain pieces of improvement, and we're getting a D right now, which is bad, but we were getting a really, really, really low F before. I mean, there's still some improvement, so we can't assess just are we good. We have to assess how much improvement have we made, and that's very fair because, again, the expectations of being good are very different than the expectations of improvement. So we want to make sure that all the work we've done this year, we can get some clarity in terms of how much improvement are we making, and I think that will also support the work of the commission.
Sure.
If we see these increments that are significant or reasonable, but again, it's hard to do that without having that bottom line that we started with, and I don't know that that our report last year really leveled that, so we could, but hopefully.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing I would say too is keep in mind, everybody in this is relatively new. I mean, we've got 2 commissions in the state right now. You were the second. There was no office in the department that was built around this work. That came into existence 2 months ago. So you've got this law that's out there, and you've got this local board here. We are working very hard to bridge that gap right now. So we do believe, based on going out and looking at what some other people have done fairly successfully in other states, that we're headed in the right direction with this. But I think one of the key steps is that we're doing what we're doing right here, is that we need to build this connection all the way around this work, so that you're not hearing it only once in a while from an update from your superintendent, but that we can build some work around all of this together as we move forward.
And if we could put you on the spot, since you've been around us for the entire time and you're kind of leaving into another area, and you're familiar with the Youngstown piece, because that's the only reference point out there, how would you assess the work with the district in terms of this commission, the culture, the acceptance of it, what would be your honest assessment of how we're doing in the process right now?
I would say Lorain has almost enthusiastically embraced it. I don't know if that's quite the right word, but it has very much been felt that it's been collaborative work. I've sat in on most of the meetings, from the outset until, Clary just took over a couple months ago. But we probably, in terms of if a district was going to have a commission in place, and having been in the field for over 30 years myself, I know how that typically is probably going to be met. I would say Lorain has very much embraced it, worked with the commission members, worked with the department, and I think we're going to see when we see some actual test data and so forth, I think you're going to see a trajectory that's probably headed in the right place, because there are a lot of things that have been put into place here in the last couple of years that I think have to produce some results at some point. So I would say from our standpoint, it's been a very, very smooth and pretty much a positive experience thus far. So hats off to to everybody involved with that. Certainly the guy to your right down there as well.
It's me, I'm to his right.
Oh, sorry.
You did it every meeting.
Yes.
I do have a question.
every meeting.
Obviously, you want to gather enough data to draw a consensus on certain attributes of the district as to where they stand today. I'd just like to get a little bit more understanding about the process next week and let's just talk about maybe the number of employees that are in the school district. How many folks are you looking at observing in order to feel comfortable that you'll be able to draw some consensus?
A goal is to be in every building.
Okay.
We have 6 reviewers, actually 7, because Clary will be doing some of that work as well, the director of the commission office.
Yes.
But a couple days are primarily focused on nothing but classroom observations, and they'll just really kind of be rotating through it. As I said, roughly 20 minutes per classroom. But the goal is to get into as many as possible. Typically, if you can get into about 35%, it's a decent, kind
sample.
of end number sample size,
Sure.
if you were. So we would definitely like to at least hit roughly 30% of your district across grade levels and buildings, is kind of a generic goal.
Okay.
The real tough piece
Thank
of that is it's the week after OAAs, and we just ramp it all up. And after OAAs, the teachers just, oh man! And now we allow the students to do the field trips and do some of the other things. So they and ODEs, everyone there, because they're in district, they do understand a lot of what will be there for the K-8.
Don't mess up the kids' school trip.
Okay, well, I appreciate the time tonight, and as I said, I assume you'll want kind of when the full report's finished. I'll leave that up to you to communicate with us or via Tom, but we will welcome coming back out here probably in July or at an early August meeting, one or the other. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, under recommendations of the superintendent, personnel matters A. Item 1, certified staff and support staff, A and B, discontinuances, which is our retirement area. Item 2, consideration of new appointments, just sub-cleaners. Item 3, consider approval of leave of absences as listed. Item 4, approval of miscellaneous items, that's the to pay the people to do the play-by-play on Channel 20. Item 5, approval of the new job description for the assistant principal position. So I ask for approval of personnel matters A, items 1 through 5.
Motion to approve personal matters A, items 1 through 5.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Fallis?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Operation matters B, item 6. First is consider approval of an agreement with Licata, which is Reach Out Now program, no cost to the district. This is a very good program for our families, 5th and 6th grade students at Tony Morrison. Number 7, approval of an agreement with James Donofrio to provide NATEF certification. This is excellent because now our students will be getting certified in that for auto repair. This is huge. We had this at one time, and we're bringing that back, which is excellent. Item 8, consider approval of an agreement with Silver and Strong. This is for more of our professional development that Dr. Richard talked about, and this is all Title I grant expenditures, and this is for our 7 through 12 program to improve instruction in the classroom and help write curriculum, and also for lesson plans. Item 9, consider approval of an agreement with Campus Impact for Services. This is a bullying prevention program for those buildings is listed. That's also a Title I grant. Item 10, approval of a multi-year agreement contract with ESC. This is an annual contract for the services that we ask there. As for items, operations matter B, items 1 through 10 for approval.
6 through 10.
Motion to
6
approve
through
items
10.
6 through 10.
Did I say 6 through 10? Sorry, 6 through 10.
Support motion.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Guys, we missed the motion in a second. I'm
Motion
sorry.
was Tony Demakia, second was Mitch.
Okay.
Stay awake.
Okay.
Stay awake.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
Mr. Fallis?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
And Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Facility matters C, item 11. This is approval of a resolution of the state-required phase submission for construction documents for the abatement and demolition of Lakeview Elementary School. And item 12, consider approval of a resolution to advertise for bids for abatement and demolition of Lakeview Elementary School.
Motion to approve items 11 and 12.
Cool.
Support.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Fallis?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
And Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Here's my recommendations.
This time, gentlemen, is there any new business for discussion?
No, sir.
Committee reports, requests from board members?
Don't necessarily have a request, but are we any closer to the progress with board docs?
We are awaiting, there was a change in the treasurer's office, so we're waiting for them to be up to speed. And with Lorain leaving, because that's a big part of the submission there, as soon as Dale gets his folks up there, we're ready to go. So
Guys got me all
We've-
excited.
we've-
And now I'm
we're
sitting
ready.
there.
Well, we're all set, and then Doreen says, "I think I'm retiring and going to Florida for a while."
We've scheduled some training for this week, so we'll see how that one goes.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
Any other requests for information? Okay, at this time, we would entertain a second hearing of the public. No takers? All right, I guess we will announce, because we're going to go into an executive session in a moment, but our next board meeting will be held on May the 19th, 6:30 p.m., right here. And at this stage, gentlemen, I need a motion to go to executive session for... It's a contract piece. What's my letter? For D.
Motion to go into executive session for item D.
Support. Roll call, please.
Okay, well, item D, preparing for conducting and reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment. Mr. Demakia.
Can you say it again? Yes.
Mr. Fallis.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill.
Yes.
And Mr. Williams.
Yes, and there will be no action post this, so, and we will actually stay here for our executive session, so we thank you for attending our meeting. Enjoy the weather, kind of, and, as much as you can. And good evening, everyone.
This has been a production of Lorain City Schools TV 20 WLCS.
To purchase a high-quality copy of the program you just viewed, please call Lorain City Schools Television at 282-8400.